we are very excited to have an outstanding group of leaders across digital, retail finance, and financial technology from Vietnamese banking and finance sector to discuss the future of the industry as we make the transition to what we just described, the next normal, which is digital post-COVID-19, and debate how Vietnam's the state bank has allowed new KYC measures to be implemented, has allowed new players, new digital players that will challenge incumbent players, and who will win in the digital first era when everyone is digital or everyone will become digital.
In this session, we will explore how both traditional and new players embrace the inevitable change to be fully functioning digital players and equip themselves with the right strategies and capabilities to win. Helping us to kickstart this virtual debate are our guest panelists who have huddled beforehand to help frame the discussions. Let me have the pleasure to introduce our panelists. Mr. Xuan, Member of Board of Directors and Head of Retail Banking, Bank. Mr. Dinh Chien, Deputy CEO and Head of Retail, Bank. Mr. Wong Seng, CIO, VP Bank. Mr. Bryan Carroll, CEO, TNEX Digital Bank. Mr. Gunneet Singh, Head of Product, Payments and Customer Engagement, Ubank. Mr. Kanish Upaya, Head of Payment Solution, Retail Banking Group, Techcombank. And finally, Mr. Rihit Dutta, Regional Director, ASEAN and Southeast Asia, Backbase.
These are some of the topics that we hope to cover today in the next 60 minutes. What is driving each of your institutions' digital strategy and leadership priorities now that we are all going digital? How to optimize customer journey by integrating a seamless experience and a customer-centric ecosystem? How should we rethink collaboration using APIs and open banking, as well as accelerate innovation through collaboration with fintechs? The first topic, what is driving each of your institutions' digital strategy and leadership priorities? We know that among you, there are the incumbent banks, right? And you are aggressively transforming to digital. And also we have new digital banks. We know that COVID-19 has been a catalyst and accelerant of change. How do you respond to the pace of change as well as the entry of new players, competition, and the impact on the competitive landscape, as well as unforeseen crisis events such as COVID-19? How do you prepare for emergent risk from that is a attendant risk of digitalization, like data leaks, data theft, cyber fraud, and security breaches to ensure operational resilience? Now, we'd like to first hear from our incumbent banks, the likes of TP Bank, MB Bank, VP Bank, who have done quite outstanding things in transforming yourselves into digital institutions. I'd like to first call on TP Bank's Mr. Chien to give us an insight into your digital strategy.
The last 2 years, it has been a good time for us to accelerate the digital strategy, the transformation, and the innovation in the digital space. What drives us, I think clearly we can see from the market, is the consumer changing. Right? The consumer behavior has changed a lot. If we compare 5-6 years ago, it's changed a lot. And that really the one that drives us to step up in terms of digital transformation, from offering the new products, find a new way to provide the services to the customer, and also making sure that we can improve the business performance from the bank perspective. The second thing I think would drive our digital strategy is the technology. The advance of the technology, I mean, we see now that is very different. In the past, we would say, okay, moving from internet and then to mobile, that's a big change. But now, based on that kind of movement in terms of internet and mobile, a lot of new technology, whether it's AI or it's blockchains or new things like that, right? It's happening every day. And then it allows us to do more things and better in a better way to our consumer.
Thank you, Mr. Chien. Yes, critical part of digital transformation is digital leadership, and to have it driven from the top. MB Bank that is also doing a lot on the digital front, working with its partners, technology, but also in terms of creating a whole new, more exciting brand as well. So we'd like to call Mr. Le from MB Bank about the digital priorities that is driving that's on your agenda.
We buy in a lot of partner, technology partner, business partner, to help us to build the strategies last 3 years. And we signed a strategic partner with IBM for 2 years full support with us to create the transformation office and build architecture and doing a lot of things in terms of business transform and technology, the new technology applied to our model. So we very focused in terms of how to acquire more customers, because we all think about the customer. Customer now, the chain of customer change rapidly in terms of COVID, in terms of new way for doing business and doing banking service. So it's one way can help the bank and customer read together more closely. So in our digital transformation, we try to call the smart transformation. It means that the smart means everything needs quickly. Customer needs buying and do the service quickly, more convenient, and doing a lot of things beyond the banking service. We measure the outcome from the digital. For example, 1 million digital customer on board successfully on the first quarter. And also for revenue, we create the revenue 3 times compared with the quarter last year. So the first stage is quite happy with the results, but we have a lot of things to do for make the customer happy and serve them more product and service.
We see in terms of the effort that has been put into onboarding new digital clients, that is part of the whole move towards digital. A lot of customers are being onboarded digitally. Now, next, I would like to get a perspective from one of the new digital banks, and I'd like to call on Mr. Carroll of TNEX to give us a perspective as well. The Vietnamese market is still relatively untapped, right? There's still a lot of underserved customers, but there are a lot of incumbent banks that have jumped onto the digital bandwagon, so to speak. How are you working to onboard customers? How are you creating a differentiation for yourself?
From a strategy perspective, digital is not a strategy, it's what we do. We don't have a technical debt. I've been in banking close on 30 years now, and I've worked in everything from fintech, VC, and traditional banks. And I don't envy what I see, what the banks have to do here, and banks I advise across the world have to do to deal with moving from a pre-digital to a digital. So, but it's great to see. Ask me about the market. I think it's really, really interesting and exciting. I've seen what MB have done, and we should be very proud. It's really, really excellent work. We see what TechCom are doing, VP. So everyone is really moving. But I suppose my comment on the market is the misuse of transformation is a problem. And it's not, that word is being misused, unfortunately. There's this whole mix-up between optimization and transformation. And perhaps if I develop that a little bit more, transformation, you see some of it being done by MB and by Ubank and Cake and ourselves. Transformation is about identifying new lines of value, new value propositions, and executing them in a digital way. Whereas optimization is faster horses. Now, there's lots of money in faster horses, but that links me to my next point. Vietnam is dramatically unbanked. We know that, or underbanked. Like at a best guess, we're looking at underserved population of 58 million people. But on the other hand, as you said earlier, a digitally obsessed nation. It's a young nation, as you said. It's what, 80% under 52. And where we work is obviously in the Gen Z part of that, which, you know, it's startling to think. I'm feeling very old, but by 2025, 25% of the working population of Vietnam is going to be these Gen Zillas, these Gen Zs. Okay. I suppose my other observation on the market is, like, we're all very proud. I'm very proud of, you know, being part of this journey in Vietnam and seeing what's happening to the industry. But the issue is banking's too expensive, too hidden with sneaky stuff. And this isn't just in Vietnam, this is all over the world. It's too much concentrated on NIM, which isn't a bad thing. And it's not what our customers want. So we're very much focused on Gen Z and removing those barriers for the customers. And, you know, we all know, you know, every management consultancy company will overcharge you to tell you should be working on SMEs and Gen Z in Southeast Asia. Banks currently cannot service them because the technical debt is too high. You know, branches, there's an inherent inbuilt cost in traditional banking that has to be served because we have to make a profit. We have to represent our shareholders. And banks, if they transform, they need to understand that they need to move to a cost of ownership of a customer model that is unheard of. Cost income ratios in a digital bank start in the 20s at scale. They don't start in the 50s or whatever we decide to put on our company reports. So that involves a massive deployment of a target digital operating model, massive usage of AI, modularity, cloud, etc. But in TNEX, we had no technical debt. We built an end-to-end 2 banks in 9 months from core to front. We also built a 3rd bank, which we will be announcing, which is our open bank with our first 2 customers. So all of it is API'd. All of it is data driven. Our cost of ownership at 3 million customers, when we get there, is $1. So I only need to make $1.01 cent. The number of people we need to run 3 million customers and on both assets and liabilities is 141 FTE. So these statistics that I'm quoting are absolutely, completely unattainable unless traditional banks transform. And to transform, the last comment is, guys, it's not technology. It's not about that, because the likes of Amazon, Google, open source and fintech have democratized this now. You know, we can put these banks in quickly. The biggest problem we have is culture. And, you know, Drucker, my 2 favorite people on this topic are Drucker. We all know Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast, but also in reality, a mathematician whose name has just flipped out of my mind. We're all destined to produce solutions that mirror our communication structures, okay? So banks need to break down the barriers in the brains. And I think the most important thing to transform or deleverage from a balance sheet, if you want to be a successful digital bank, is get rid of the old culture. And that's very, very difficult. And it doesn't start and end with a digital factory. That's a lot of theater. It starts with leadership. And if we can get the leadership right, Vietnam is going to be one amazing digital economy in the next 5 years.
We really fire up the discussion, and I'd like to get some responses there. Are the incumbents really transforming, or are you just getting faster horses? Maybe Mr. Wong, who's looking after technology at VP Bank.
When you inherit a brownfield environment, you have a lot of legacy to deal with. And one of the key challenges, I can tell you frankly, is how do we then ensure, you know, all the nice and snazzy things that we can roll out. The challenge for us is really how do we make it stable, secure, and simple to use? Because you have a wide spectrum of users, different capabilities, different backgrounds and stuff like that. So it's important for us, from our strategy perspective, is as long as you keep it simple, you make it stable, and you make it secure, you will naturally gravitate a lot of people into your environment. Because everybody, we are a bank. The whole entire purpose of a bank, people put money into the bank, is for security, right? In essence, it horns the secure function capability. So it is important for us, from my perspective and from VP Bank's perspective, that we chase down this and make sure that we hone it and make it good and solid. That whole entire cycle of customer experience needs to be enhanced and rapidly do it.
So incumbent have your challenges in terms of legacies and also in terms of on the regulatory front, you need to be extra careful on security, on stability, and so on and so forth. Now, also to the point of, are you creating new value proposition, right? I want to kind of hear from a product perspective. Maybe we can hear from Mr. Upahe from Techcom Bank, who said of payment solution, I mean, one of the areas where it's, we also talk about payment transformation, right? How to deliver payments faster, cheaper, yeah, more efficient.
When we talk about payments and why and what we do, there are two ends which really fueled what Techcom has been doing. One is no points for guessing the customer. This is one of the few markets, as some of the other speakers also said, where you don't have to create the product and then convince the customer. The customer drives the product creation. It's a very young, very eager, very digital population, and it's already very demanding. You could, we are in fact sometimes a little behind what the customer wants. So that makes the job a little easy because you know what the customer wants. You just have to make it better and faster than the next guy if you want to win market share. The other end, which is very interesting, is that the board is also equally aligned to driving the bank into the next decade. And when I say aligned, I mean they don't need to be convinced. They are pushing us and everybody, the whole management, to take the bank to the next level. You realize that what you're trying to achieve when it comes to payments is actually invisibility. You want payments to just disappear. Customers don't want to do payments. Customers want what the product they want or the service they want. They don't want to go through the process of doing payments or OTP, and they don't want that to be cool. But it's your job to make sure that you make it as invisible or transparent, yet maintaining the security. That is why people come to banks. I think Mr. Wong said that very well. We can't forget that. Repeatedly, no matter how much of new banking comes about and how much of open banking comes about, the one thing that stands out in customer demand continues to be they feel banks are safe. And among other things, that's one reason why incumbents continue to perform well, I'm hoping, provided they obviously catch up to the newcomers in terms of technology and ease of banking. So a lot of innovation on that side, from how we are allowing our customers to interact with us, to use us, to move from banking to conversational banking to invisible banking. I think that is a path that we are following, and we are somewhere perhaps 40% there. But the way customers adopt, I think that's the best answer. It's a fantastic journey, the results that we are getting. I hope that next year we'll be here telling you about how we have clean sweep the market.
Thank you, Mr. Upahe. And from your counterpart from a digital perspective, who is also looking after payments and customer proposition, Mr. Singh from Ubank. How are you creating new value proposition?
So I think so we are the youngest kid on the block. We kind of started our journey sometime in the middle of last year to set up a new digital bank. And as you said in our introduction, that we are a bank powered by FE Credit and VP Bank. The key, so FE Credit is Vietnam's biggest finance company. It has got a share of more than 50% in terms of loan disbursed, and and share of around 80% plus when it comes to profitability share in the market. And so we have got close to I would say 12 million odd customers, even more than that. And we would like, and these customers right now are having a very transactional relationship with us. They come here for a loan, they take a loan, and then they move away once the purpose has been solved. But these are people who definitely have a banking need. These are the people who are banking, not with us, but definitely with someone else. So the key purpose of having a Ubank over here is that how do we take care of these customers who are also taking a loan from us, how can we really, give them a digital banking solution wherein the loan part and the banking are both married together very closely. We are a finance company, so our target market segment is defined as mass and upper mass segments. And in that very segment, as we are in the business of giving loans, so we look out for people who are employed or they have their own business. So it's basically people who are typically salaried or have got a fixed source of a well-defined source of income. So we are when we are looking at our strategy for Ubank, we are very clear that you can't ask customers to make to pay you for payments. They consider it to be free. Right now, majority of the banks are giving propositions in the market which are absolutely no fee, no charges, nothing for payments, credit card free, debit card free, everything free. So where exactly, and if you still have to make money, then where exactly do you make money? If everything is eventually being given free. So it has to be, a kind of a value add service, and the value add service that we are looking at over here to start with is the lending proposition. Then combined with things which are primarily insurance, specially designed and targeted for mass and upper mass segment, and this complete package of a payroll banking solution combined with lending, combined with insurance, all three of them being delivered to the customer digitally. Now, and that is what we intend to do over here.
That's kind of a good setting for the next topic, which is diving in depth about optimizing customer journey, creating seamless, personalized experience, as well as onboarding right to the continuous usage of financial services. Consumers today, for example, they are so used to making purchases in the retail platform, which provide them the speed, and when it goes into banking services, they are also expecting the same. So we talk about eKYC, and even to execute eKYC, the bank must have the ability to extract information as fast as possible, whether the information is available nationally or in a database, so that they can do the eKYC as well as be in compliance with money laundering requirements. In the case of business, it could be the TBML, which is trade-based money laundering. So these are challenges that banks will face in trying to be comparable to the retail online stores. At the same time, also the traditional banks have to compete with the digital bank that leverage on artificial intelligence, machine learning to support the onboarding. So I think it's kind of interesting to hear from the banks, and let's hear from Mr. Lee Le from MB Bank, how they are leveraging on artificial intelligence or eKYC to have a seamless onboarding of customers, at the same time deliver bespoke or personalized banking.
For the customer with the eKYC, is have the customer on board successful with the video call or some other technology. So we provide them the beautiful account with the limit amount that's the fit with their requirement. For example, 300 million per month. So we have some partnership to do the logistic, can get the document from the customer and have them to become the 100% actively with the full limit after that. So we call the 2 level for customer when they on board with us.
I'm going to ask the view of a digital only bank, and I'm going to ask Bryan to make some comments on how the onboarding process and how they use technology coupled with whether biometrics and leveraging on national data to onboard customers, perhaps?
We made a decision to build our own eKYC. And that was a brave decision and one that did keep me awake at night. And the reason we did that was fundamentally eKYC is not just about AML. eKYC gave us an opportunity to harvest data, to look at behavior, and to also, for example, sitting under eKYC, we have a behavioral security AI model, okay, which protects us, okay? But eKYC is hygiene, guys, in digital banking. I think we need to get over that now, guys. We have eKYC in Vietnam. It was really good by the SPV. But then we get on to customer experience. In TNEX, we do believe a little bit the old misused Bill Gates quote, people don't need banks, but they need banking. But let's change that. People don't need banks, but they need trusted banking. Nobody, and as said by one of our esteemed speakers before, nobody has ever said, I want a loan from FE Credit or from VP Bank or from MSB Bank. What they've said is, I want a loan to support my family, fix my roof, pay the $3 million that needs to be paid per student every September so the kids can go to university. So we've built our whole customer experience around that second part. And we're very lucky because we don't have the need for RPA projects or, because we don't have people. Digital doesn't have robotic process automation, it doesn't need it. We don't have MDM because all our data is in one place, it's secure, it's encrypted, it's as it should be. But what we're concentrating is, why do customers want us? And they want a embedded, we call it, as you all know, embedded lifestyle, or what we do, ecosystem. And every night we relearn every single customer's behavior. And it's personalized even from the UX. But also on the merchant side, of course, we're two banks. We've also got a micro SME bank. But the customer experience for a micro SME is completely different. The reason that most, 50% of all transactions done in Vietnam every day are from micro SMEs. This is big business, so very important. But they want a completely different experience. They want more sales. So what we did with them was they can now target using our AI. We've given them all our tools. Customer experience for us is always personalized. And the challenge, of course, how do you get to that individual customer? How do you know that? How do you individually know a customer? And how you do that is data. But it all comes down to behavior. Everyone in our lives, 80% of what you do is emotional, or in my wife's case, 100% when I'm around. So what you've got to do is know your customer through data, co-design with your customer, stop guessing. We co-designed everything with our customer, with university students, with merchants, measure every day, measure in real time, take the feedback, and don't be afraid to be wrong, because you're going to be wrong. Your CX is always going to be wrong. You're always going to be improving.
In essence, I think, to summarize it, the using of structured data, semi-structured data, unstructured data to contextualize banking so that you can hyper-personalize.
Yeah, I think
with this experience, and we talk about ecosystem. So I want to have the view of Rudy. In your opinion, what can banks do better to support SMEs and small businesses?
We all know that the SMEs and micro SMEs are operating in a very fragmented banking environment, and it simply isn't serving them, right? On a day-to-day basis, what we have seen is SMEs are tapping into a wide range of applications and services to meet their overall financial needs. They have something for banking, they have something for bookkeeping, they have something for payroll, something for reconciliation, payable, receivable, you name it, right? But they don't have that one platform or that one application through which they can do all of it. And who is best placed to solve this problem? Nobody but banks. And I personally believe the traditional incumbent banks that we have here today on the panel are probably very well suited to solve this problem, because while they have a legacy, while they have, while they are incumbents, but they also have that infrastructure which they can build on top of it. But coming to SMEs, I think one of the core tenets of serving the SME customer is to identify that how they can focus on growing their business while letting technology be with banks where the money is. And there are four key things that we would like banks to keep in mind when they're trying to service their SME and micro SME customers. The first thing is, what are the services that the SME customers are using most often? You don't need to reinvent the wheel for this. The basic things that SME customers are looking at is, can I do payments? Can I process my payroll and salaries? Can I do some form of cash management and cash forecasting? And if required, again, I'm saying if required, can I do a little bit of cash flow forecasting and a little bit of things around account payables and receivables? That is the basics. Now, can you as a bank really digitize that and start solving that first problem? So that is the first thing that one probably needs to keep in mind. The second thing is prioritize the right technology. Obviously, technology is not the solution, but technology is always an enabler, and it has to be backed by a business, real business driver. But when I'm talking about prioritizing the right technology, when you're trying to solve a problem, you cannot really keep on adding layers on top of one layer, trying to solve that one problem. And I will go back to my point about, can one platform do all of it versus doing one thing through multiple platforms. So it's very important to identify and prioritize the right technology rather than going for short-term fixes that, okay, this can do eKYC, this can do AML, this can orchestrate the entire journey, but is there one platform that can do all of it, right? So that's the second thing. The third thing, and I think it's very, very important when it comes to SME, is there are two parts to the wheel here. There is the SME customer, and then there is the internal bank employee. Now, quite often we focus a lot on the SME customers, that the self-servicing part. But we also need to understand that in an SME or a corporate scenario, not all transactions are going to be straight through. There's going to be a lot of transactions which need the bank employees to intervene. How would their experience be from an assisted servicing perspective? And that is very, very important. That is one of the places where the turnaround time for, let's say, some of these transactions can vary between 1 day to 14 days. And that is where the entire employee experience, the entire internal bank employee engagement also becomes very, very important. And then finally, my fourth point is, and it's not just relevant for SME, but for any sort of customers that you want to talk about, whether it's consumer, SME, corporate, or even private banking, wealth, is that it is not just about doing something once. It is about how do you continuously deploy these improvements? How can you, potentially look at release cycle of a fortnight so that, you are not just stopping after 6 months or 8 months or 9 months, but every single month from there on, you are adding more and more and more onto the platform. So I think, while the first 3 points were more focused on SME per se, the last point is more generic. But broadly, these are the trends that we have seen in the industry, in the marketplace, when we're talking about trying to service SME and micro SME customers.
The next topic we are on is rethinking the world of collaboration using APIs and open banking, right? So the whole customer proposition now no longer is generated by the banks. It's no longer about products or services. It's about needs, right? As some of our panelists has kind of alluded to. It's about what the customer wants. And today, the customer is not seen as a single entity. They are right in the middle of an entire ecosystem. And today, the ecosystem participants can be your customers, right? Today, it is about not just B2C, not just the bank to the customer, but the bank to other service provider is B2B2C, right? And creating the ecosystem, having the technology enablement to link and connect and share data, APIs, which traditionally banks are very averse to doing, right? I'll never share my data. I'm an incumbent bank. Why should I share my data with someone who wants to, eat my lunch, so to speak, right? So this, but in payments, more than anything, is where you get a lot of transactional data. You get so much understanding of where the customer has been and to analyze his needs, right? So by his shopping habits, yes, you know his life stage and everything, right? So I want to go back to Kanesh, right? Techcom Bank. I guess payments is one of the areas where you're using APIs, creating open banking to widen your ecosystem. How are you addressing that point?
First, let me admit banks are very protective about their data, and I guess that's been the traditional stance that we've had for some time. But I just want to also just take a step back and say it's not about a bank or an entity trying to solve everything by themselves. I think the ecosystem play works both ways. It is very important to partner up for different needs, right? Everybody trying to build everything is just a whole waste of productivity at the end of the day. There are smaller, niftier entities doing such exciting stuff that you can plug in, you can borrow. Open banking, perhaps it's already here, but open data is definitely here. And you can, whether it's telecom, whether it's social media, how we are eKYCing customers, but not just eKYCing, but credit scoring customers. I mean, we have social media chat platforms giving credit scores, and with very good Gini scores, very good KS scores. So there is a whole ecosystem play, and banks, traditional or new, need to be very clear on what their strengths are and what their strengths are not, and perhaps not try too hard to try to make everything, but rather partner. So whether it's a loyalty ecosystem that you want to partner with to solve that problem, whether it's a payment ecosystem you want to partner with. We have many closed loop wallets, and I think that leads to a lot of disintermediation. If you look at a lot of other countries, having one single national payment player or non-national, doesn't really matter, has unlocked so much of the economy. And I think that today or tomorrow, Vietnam is headed there, right? And it must. Otherwise, everybody inventing these small pools which they own doesn't really help. And it's an absolute unproductive way of moving forward. Now that I'm speaking about payments specifically, I think we need to have a uniform, open payment ecosystem where everybody can play in, and customer doesn't have to look at the color of the QR code and try to match it to his own QR code. Am I the green guy or the yellow guy? I don't want to take names, but be able to play the open. And then, of course, the person who leads this is the person who gets the data. So that's still the domain of the guy who's willing to go in and do the acceptance, issuance. But the point is that when you connect everybody together, that's when a customer base is able to perfectly flow and money is able to flow back and forth. That's one of the things we learned in payments. But payments is how you get customers in, how you make their life easy.
As an industry, how are we moving towards open banking and digital ecosystem? Mr. Wong, BP Bank, if we can get your perspective. And then maybe after that, from TP Banks, Mr. Chien as well.
To be frank and honest, because of the tight competition between the different organizations and stuff like that, it's still a ways more to go for us to pull together and collectively come together to form these nationalistic payment structure, that we are so used to in the other economies, etc. For now, I think a lot of us, even within VP Bank itself, we are looking at creating this platform of our own, tapping our own internal ecosystems as well to leverage against some of the key critical like SMEs across down to the customer base, etc., etc. As a result, one of our strategies is also like what you guys already probably know. We spin off digital banks, through our We Group, through Ubank and stuff like that, and this is actually to create our own and enlarge ecosystem for us to kind of like envisage and pull them all together, collectively, and then provide that services among our systems and our subsidiaries. At the same time, share the data, understand how do we provide that edge to these people. Once we are able to go the open API mechanism capability, the connectivity and stuff like that, it doesn't prevent us from opening up this to a greater group of people, and even plug ourselves into the nationalistic payment system, like whether it's NAPAs or whatever, not, we are able to get into it. And then as a result, enable a larger pool of people to cross-reference and to do cross payments across different customers who may have their own preference to a particular bank, and therefore as a result, it then helps us to then generate that capability within Vietnam. And that's how I think going forward, that would be some ways to go, but is also a start. I'm sure the other banks and my esteemed colleagues would also be thinking along some of these lines, where they will be building some within their own ecosystems and stuff like that. At some point, we will be able to come and cross breach and kind of plug ourselves together, as long as we are adding value to our customers.
An interesting strategy that VP Bank has taken in terms of creating different proposition or different units looking at different proposition and creating kind of internal ecosystem around that. Just maybe one more perspective from TP Bank, Mr. Chien, on how you see the industry coming together on open banking. And of course, open banking is something at in different markets is a national kind of policy directed initiative.
Just mentioned in the past, right, the bank kind of protective, right? Not like share the data, afraid of losing some data or even customer, right? So, but now the digital trend already puts the bank to open. And then to do digital banking and digital transformation, the digital partnership is critical. So right now we see each of us here, right? We connect, we connect with different partner, whether it's fintech or non-fintech or even some other partner in the whole consumer journey, whether even going to the e-commerce website, right? So that's why the open API has been able allow us to do a lot of connection, build a whole ecosystem. But if from here moving to open banking, I think it's still a long step. But I think some direction has been has some signal there in terms of I think in our discussion in the market, people talk about agent banking. So agent banking, I think, is the very first concept in terms of like you open to outside the ecosystem, but in a more like offline one. Have to talk offline on it. And then if that platform or that regulation allow us to do something like agent banking, I think it's very quickly to move from there to open banking, where the whole banking business can be exposed or shared with other partners. And then I think by that time, we definitely will see a much better, close, very well-working kind of ecosystem. It's not just a closed-loop ecosystem in some of the banks are doing right now, but it's more open one. And then I think that would be a big benefit for the whole market and also definitely to the consumer. A lot of things we can see there: better customer experience, less transaction cost. I think you will see a lot of improvement there. But I believe that the direction has been somewhere in terms of from the Asian banking perspective, and then we see it move very fast because all this digital transformation.
There are many lessons that we can draw from other markets that have kind of gone along that path. Really, given your regional role, you see a lot of developments, initiatives in different markets, best practices that you observe. What can the banks in Vietnam learn from that?
I'll probably take an example of another bank without naming them that we work with for quite some time. We have been working with them for almost 5 years now in the Philippines. Okay, and it's a traditional incumbent bank. It's in fact the oldest bank in Southeast Asia. And this bank, I think, where they were facing the same set of challenges that I heard from some of the traditional incumbent banks on the panel today, is the legacy, the siloed architecture, the monolithic architecture, so on and so forth. So this bank, what they did, and I must give complete kudos to them, is that they said that first we have to get the basics right. And for them, getting the basics right was about start investing in platforms. The bank knew back then, or the bank thought about it back then, that platforms are the way forward, and they would like to invest in platforms through which they can do the land and expand strategy, that you start on one customer journey, but on the same platform, on the same building block, with the concepts of reusability. How do you extend that one journey to more journeys, not only in one line of business, but across lines of businesses? So they started with very simple journeys, right? Journeys around payments, which is, as Kanish was mentioning, commodity. You need to move towards the invisible space on payments. So they started on journeys like payments. But today, if you look at them, they have moved from payments, they have gone all the way to obviously digital onboarding. They have gone to, I think Gunneet was talking about insurance. So they are doing insurance on the platform. They're doing trading on the platform. They are doing a lot of cross-sell, to the extent they are also onboarding wealth management customers using the same credential within the same ecosystem. So I think that just to keep my answer short and crisp, is that what we are seeing in Asia, in other markets, as well as other parts of the world, is that more progressive banks are not looking at digital transformation as siloed experiments that I want to give my customers a good experience on a mobile app. That's not digital transformation. Digital transformation for us is where banks are saying, okay, let's go one level below the experience. Let's start thinking about the engagement. Bryan was talking so much about data, and I think that is very, very pertinent, is that as platforms, as banks, we have so much data. Are we doing enough with the data? Are we doing enough with the data to literally drive the engagement, to literally drive the experience? And that is where I think banks in Vietnam also needs to start focusing on, which is to drive the customer engagement, drive the customer experience through the platform, rather than just looking at these individual channels as silos or as experiments, as you might want to say.
I want to thank all our panelists for your very in-depth and often very passionate comments. This digital journey that the banks in Vietnam are on, it is right at the start. And from the different perspective that we hear, there are a fair amount of challenges that the industry face still, whether you are on a full-blown transformation, or as Bryan mentioned, or just optimizing technology today. Are you creating new value proposition, and how are you creating an ecosystem with technology to best leverage all the data that you have, the very useful data that you have. You are doing different exciting things that will move this whole digital endeavor forward, and it's something that we'll continue to track. I'm sure this is not the end of this conversation. It's only the beginning, and we hope to come back and have an update of this as we go.
I want to thank all the panelists and guests for their sharing, their contributions, their thought leadership, as well as sharing some of the things they are doing, both the traditional banks and the non-traditional, and the challenges they face. So I think we have all benefited much from this exchange of views, sharing our experiences, as well as thought-provoking ideas.